Okay, let's go live. Okay, we're live. So, hello and welcome to the Late Night Design Show. Tonight's guests are going to be Pasquale D'Silva. He's an animator and software designer. He is also making keyframes, Keyframes HQ. Pretty cool site to share all of your designs and all of your work in progress. Eric Henry. Am I saying it right, Eric?
Definitely.
Motion at Google Material. Pretty cool guy. We're going to get a little bit philosophical about animation. And Josh Oluwagbemiga. Am I saying it right, man?
No.
Oh, my God. Please help me out. It's Josh what?
Yeah, so it's Joshua Oluwagbemiga.
Okay, I was a little bit close. Come on.
Yeah.
Animator and product designer at InVision app. Actually, a co-worker. So really cool to have you here, man. And tonight's topic, so cool. We're going to be talking about animation. It's so hot right now. And for all the viewers out there, just you have a little window there for a chat. So you can say hi. It will be cool to see where you're visiting us from and add questions. Because at the end, at the 45-minute mark, we're going to go to questions. And Edgar Chaparro, who is there on the chat, he's going to be gathering all those questions. And that's it. Let's get started. I'm going to close this, stop sharing. And there you go. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Great. How are you?
Awesome.
Good. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I know, Josh, you are in Nigeria. And what is that? And Pascal, you are in Brooklyn. So I know it's a little bit late for you guys. So really, really thankful for you for being here. And Eric, you are over here on my side. We're fine. We're at 7 p.m.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake for us. Yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to. I think one of a good way to start up talking about animation is just like talking about all that stuff that we saw as kids for cartoons. And I was wondering, what is a cartoon that you guys were? I don't know, that you enjoyed as a kid. What was your favorite cartoon, and if it influenced you? Like, I don't know, Pascal, tell us a little bit about that.
Gosh, I mean, an endless number of influences, but John Kricfalusi has been a favorite of mine, even though a lot of stuff came out against him being a total creepo. The creator of Ren and Stimpy, Spunko. I really liked his sort of counter approach to filmmaking and animation and trying to break some of the norms, the stuff that was popular. And he would go super weird. I think that his work really wasn't for kids to watch, but somehow managed to slip under the radar and get on a popular network like on Nickelodeon. And I don't know if it was distributed on Cartoon Network.
How is that even possible, man? I mean, I remember just seeing that, and I knew it was a special. I knew this was not. It was totally different from everything else that was out there on TV or anything in the past.
Yeah,
at least
Kricfalusi is. I can't even understand how he managed to like get a show green lit. I mean, the work's amazing, but it's watch an episode of Ren and Stimpy, you're gonna take away some pretty freaking weird lessons. But he, besides like being super surreal and weird, he has for a while been an incredible teacher and shared a lot of his knowledge. I think I sent you some of his links, Pablo.
Yeah.
He is a very technical artist and writes a lot about drawing and animation and composition and technique and animation history. He is he's kind of a mad genius and has been like one of many like animation inspirations for me over the years.
Yeah, and I have to say, there's not a lot of animators that share their process. At least, or I haven't found a lot of them that share like at least how like, hey, I tried this and it didn't work out, and then I tried this and then this is the result. Like this is like the kind of stuff that he was sharing at least in the past in his blog posts and stuff. So I find it, even that I find it revolutionary in a little bit, where he was like opening up and just like sharing that part of it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
what about you, Josh? What are some cartoons over there? And are there any cartoons in Nigeria, or is it the same that are over here?
Yeah, so I think it's slightly different. So as a kid, I watched a lot of Tom and Jerry, SpongeBob SquarePants, Dexter. Yeah, the list goes on. But yeah, but I think Tom and Jerry was like one of the cartoons that influenced me the most, because every Saturday morning, me and my sisters would just sit down and watch it for like 3 hours straight.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Does they also used I want to think that they also were a little bit revolutionary in the whole idea of how, I don't know, I actually don't know, but I liked Tom and Jerry a lot. And so hold on, so you're saying that you were a kid and SpongeBob SquarePants was out when you were a kid?
yep.
Hold
I'm
on,
21 right now.
that actually started like
What?
20 years ago. How old are we? That it started in '99, I think.
Yeah, I'm 21.
There you go. So you were, dude, you're a kid right now, still.
Yeah.
He just celebrated his sweet 16.
Yes. What about you, Eric?
Oh, I'm gonna say Hanna-Barbera right off the bat. So I grew up in the '70s, and as you know, that was my early childhood. And honestly, anything animated, I was just transfixed. And you know, you had already kind of asked the question, so I was reflecting, and it was like, why? You know, there was I don't even know what it's called, but there was like Space Ghost and all these weird, like, people lived on some weird planet, and this funky triceratops thing that shoots like flaming meatballs out of its horn or whatever. And I think it's the idea of, like, you know, I hear a lot about like world creation, you know, and some people go to movies and it's enough to even like you go Blade Runner and it's all about the world that gets created. And I think there's something, I mean, I want story too, but definitely world, and the way that cartoons kind of brought me into a world made a big mark for sure.
Yeah,
And,
was there a specific cartoon from Hanna-Barbera that you liked?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it had like Space Ghost and these like weird creatures. And
oh, okay, that's the
Was
one.
it just Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, well, I think it's
Space
Here, look.
Ghost.
Huts from that.
Here, I'm gonna find it out for you. Hanna-Barbera, Space Ghost.
Are you Googling right now?
Yeah.
You are from Google, so I suppose.
Yeah, right. So I gotta. Oh, there we go. The Space Ghost. But he wasn't the Herculoids. There you go. The Herculoids.
There you go. So that was the name of that cartoon.
Yeah, that was the name of the cartoon. And it was, like I said, it was like one of many. I would say, you know, another way to put it is the only cartoon I didn't like is there were certain shows with animated, they were live action, but had animated intros. So one was Hee Haw, which was this country music station, like variety program, and I was like, great, another cartoon. And like Joshua, it was like Saturday morning, hours, and eventually it would bleed into like adult, you know, older adult programming or whatever. And it was like another cartoon, but it was it was a bait and switch. And same thing with Soul Train. I was, you know, not interested in watching grown-ups dance, but they had that really cool like chugga 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 chugga, the Soul Train. And
Yeah,
I was
there
like,
was
"Yay!"
animation, right?
Yeah, and I was like, another cartoon, fantastic. So yeah, it was like I didn't have a lot of I don't know, critical aesthetic at that point. I just loved anything animated.
And you feel like that actually like shaped your interests
Definitely,
into
definitely.
animation. That was that it.
Absolutely.
Watching this was like, I want to do that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely. And I never learned that style of the drawing and had the patience and do the cell animation, but definitely it pushed me into doing some kind of filmmaking. By the time I kind of got involved, it was using computers and digital manipulation. So I had other ways of creating worlds and characters that didn't involve a lot of drawing. But yeah, absolutely. And then I would say like more recently, like discovering Miyazaki and in particular Spirited Away, like amazing. Just like that hit all the marks because it was the world, it was just this other reality, and so sort of lovely and deep and believable, and the story and everything, it just really came together in an amazing way. So
Yeah.
big fan of Miyazaki.
All the stuff from a
Guy's a
studio.
genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and the cool thing is they still show it sometimes in the theater. At least here in San Francisco, you can like every other month you'll be able to go watch that movie in one of those indie theaters.
Yeah.
Pascal, so I mean, it's cool. Like, okay, you're a kid, you start imagining about like, oh, I want to do that as when I grow up. But you, Pascal, just really quickly started actually working on that. You were like, I think 14, right? And you started working at an animation studio.
Yeah. I don't know. I just looked at like normal people jobs and was like, that's boring as shit. I don't want to do that when I'm old. And watching like B-rolls of like old Disney films and watching animators in the studio, I was like, wait a moment. You mean you could be a person that works out how to make a bear juggle like pies as a job? And I was like, shit, I got to work out how to do this. So, I sent a reel off of like animated experiments, like some traditional and digital animated experiments to one of the local branches of Warner Brothers Animation. And they were like, whoa, you're like crazy young. You're like 14 or 21 or whatever that number was, 14. I went into Warner Brothers and like met with their like technical leads and their creative directors, and they were like, hey, well, what are you interested in working on? I was like, I don't know, like not doing a normal job. You guys make movies all day. That seems kind of fun. And after like a week of just like kind of shadowing a couple like technical directors and stuff, they were like, hey, well, if you want some summer work, like coming into the studio. And like I worked in a bunch of different departments, and I was working on like 2D and 3D stuff. At the same time, I was like starting to pick up like freelance jobs. Like one of my like early mentors was an ex Hanna-Barbera and Disney animator who taught me a lot of traditional animation. But he was kind of an old timer that didn't really understand computer animation or software at all. So a lot of the times I would be like working on jobs with him. He would be like lead animator, like maybe be an in-betweener or animation assistant, and then also take his like hand-drawn work and pass it through like digital cleanup and do compositing. And like After Effects was like version 1 or 2 at that time. So I was like, cobbling like bits of animation like that I inked digitally together and like, producing commercials and stuff. But very quickly I was like pretty interested in like making moving pictures, and like had worked in animation like when I was in high school. I missed out on a lot of high school. I would bail from a lot of like the extracurricular activities to go work in studios because I thought that was more fun. Like always wanted to be an animator.
You were not in proms. You were in the.
I bailed on my prom. I did not go to my prom. I think I was probably working that night. But I was working on something stupid. It was like some crappy like Superman movie. It was like the prequel to like Superman Returns or something like that. It was a really bad film, but cut my teeth on it. Learned a lot. It was cool.
That's good. That's good. What about so you started mentioning well, this your mentor, and apparently he taught you a little bit of like old school animation, and I suppose like
Yeah.
hand drawn animation. Like how do you guys feel, like how valuable is that, is learning about that process, like for, well, modern animation, like because like I feel like right now you can open a lot of different softwares and you can just put a couple of keyframes and then it will create magic for you, which is great. But I wonder, like, is that not letting you understand what's happening behind the scenes, what is
I
actually
think it's absolutely valuable. I think even the best, time has shown even the best animators, like 3D animators at Pixar and some of these bigger studios, are animators that have 2D traditional backgrounds. Like when you're animating with a computer, you're wrestling the computer. Computers like to, fill in the blanks for you. They'll put down things linearly or on springs, and stuff kind of looks mushy. I think like really understanding the anatomy of motion, understanding how a computer draws those pictures by actually drawing the pictures yourself is the best way to like really understand what's going on under the hood, and to think of time as sculpture instead of a thing that's just like automatically done by a computer. I think there's so much value in learning how to animate manually that you can apply to your future work in automation.
What about you, Henry? Do you sorry, Eric, do you know do you do like old school animation? Do you do like hand drawn stuff?
I definitely, it's a skill I admire, but I came through a really weird side door. I started, and going back to the whole sort of influence of animation, right?
Yeah.
I had a big, huge like VHS camcorder that was my dad's, and we would steal it and make these goofy movies, but they didn't feel interesting or substantial to me until I could take them into a computer, and it was basically, it actually dropped a lot of information because this was at a really early, I had an Amiga computer, and some people know that as like video toaster, which was pretty cutting edge, but this was not even that level. It was like a low level model, and it had a paint program. You can basically think of it as like animated GIFs. Like I was able to make these animated GIFs, and what they took away was extra frames, but what that put in, to me, when I looked at them, they were suddenly more magical because I think they looked like animation, right? They had a lower frame rate and they were simplified in this really interesting way. So, no, I have none of that training. And I was just grabbing, I was basically like, it was really about the Mac. And, once I got a Mac and being able to put together longer sequences and, working in, I got an internship, and I remember I was goofing around. I didn't actually have anything with it to do, so I was sort of twiddling my thumbs and looking at After Effects kind of quizzically. And one of the folks that worked there just said, "Hey, do you want me to kind of give you a quick primer?" And he just showed me like how to unfold the little properties and set some keyframes, and that was it. That was like, okay, this is what I got, right? So that's the environment where I learned animation. And I guess what I take from classical is really like the commitment to craft. So, I definitely, I have a lot of respect for the classical skills. I have a lot of respect for the Disney animators but when you think about it, they were inventing that stuff because they loved what they did. So I was also inventing my own route. And sometimes I think it's good to not know and to have a little bit of blindness on what other people are doing so that you come up with weird solutions. And so that's kind of more my route, I think.
Yeah, I feel like also if people knew how hard it can be to just actually animate, probably they wouldn't be interested either. They would be like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I'm going to go back to just like working, I don't know, at Domino's or making pizzas. That sounds better. Josh, how do you get started in animation? Because it's for you, it's just like all of these programs already exist and they're out there. There are so many resources, After Effects, and I don't know, like 3D software. How do you start getting into this?
Yeah, so even like when I was like very young, like age of 10, I didn't even have access to a computer then. So there was this fun thing we used to do as kids, that on the side of our notebooks, we'd draw like different frames, then flip through the pages. Then the animation kind of like played through the edge. of the notebook. Yeah, something we did a lot. So I think that was like the first interaction I had with like making my own animation. And as you said, the tools already existed. And when I like finally decided to like start doing stuff, I think Macromedia Flash was around by then. So I was playing a lot with it, then After Effects and so on. So I really respect traditional approach to it. I think is really, really complex, and they have to like draw every single frame. And this founding fathers of animation have actually like set the principles for all of us to follow, even down to this digital age of design.
Yes, I think there's a lot to learn for sure, and I've been trying to learn too. It's just like going back to it, just like because again, I feel like it's so easy now. Like you just put two states, there are two keyframes, and you just put a Bezier curve, and boom, you got something that is looking okay. But in a way, for at least for me to try to be better at making that, I just wanted to do it a little bit harder. Just like so been doing hand drawn animations, and it's hard because it's you don't have that there's no just one button that just says draw this thing for me. You just have to actually do it and take those pauses that are necessary, and just like the weight and the timing, and it's just like it's hard, but I think it helps because then you start seeing it like, oh, this kind of thing, this trick that Disney or Hanna-Barbera they did, like this could be applied also for you animation. This could be applied also for product design, and it's interesting to see it that way, I think. But it also just like makes me wonder if animation should just be over there. Like, should it just be about animation and games and entertainment? Like, but now it's being filtered into product design, into user interface, and I wonder, you guys, how important is animation in UI design, just in the user experience? How do you think does it bring value? Do you think it's just a mimic? A gimmick? Like, what do you guys think? Is it? What do you think, Pascal? Because I'm pretty sure you have strong opinions about this.
Well, I mean, animation is literally like a handle on a dimension that I think the software scene has been ignoring for the last like couple of decades, which is time, right? Like it's a consideration around time, around state, around the spatial relationships between objects on the screen. And if we are kinetic, moving human beings, moving our meat sausages on a piece of glass, you know, our input is kinetic. You would expect the output to be kinetic as well. We think spatially, we think kinetically, and I think when software doesn't respond that way, it feels dead. It feels like it disrespects the laws of nature and physics and what you expect. You know, we are trying to create the illusion that this thing under this piece of glass is paying attention to us, and if it's an extension of our minds, if it's an extension of us as like moving spatial human beings, the software should be as well. I think it's absolutely critical to be thinking about software this way, because you can communicate so much inside motion.
Yeah, and Eric, tell us a little bit about like how in Google you're just like thinking about this and how to incorporate it as part of material design. And I'm pretty sure you guys have like very philosophical questions about this stuff. I don't know, like tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I think there's a little bit of a tension, right? Because on the one hand, animated transitions are key to sort of augmenting usability. On the other hand, you want a lot of times interactions are very directed at a goal, right? So you don't want it to stand in between what the action the user has taken and getting to that goal, right? I like Pascal, he was talking about basically the dimension of time, right? And because we are animators, we think about that, right? So I you know, one of our things is to respect people's time, right? So we try to kind of keep it simple. keep it short, for all of the things that are really about getting you from A to B. I couldn't agree more that the things that are gestural or involve a more kind of human input should carry that energy and reflect that energy. And there's a struggle too between kind of design and actual implementation, because you have to get something on the screen before you can move something on the screen. It tends to be later in the process, and that's a process which often never hits all the marks the designers wanted in the first place. So we have to be pretty crafty and strategic as motion designers for what do we really want to sort of double down on and say, no, this is really important. This is more optional, right? I actually have been working on a prototype, a really simple kind of product, like fake product, just like a file browser on mobile. And one of the things that you can do is turn off the transitions altogether, and it's just jump cuts, right? And it was interesting to see, like, where does that actually work and where does that fall apart? Because there are places where you don't miss it, right? And there are places where I have absolutely no idea. I have absolutely no idea what happened if you don't walk me through that change. So yeah, I think I think it's important. I think generally I like that a lot of the things that are really just about responding to an unambiguous request are straightforward, sleek, streamlined. And then of course there are places where the animation and a little bit of cleverness and liveliness kind of brings that human touch and lets you know, like, hey, a human sat down and thought about you in this moment and tried to think, like, what's going to be delightful to you? What's going to be my way of saying, oh man, I'm sorry, that sucks, and transmit that through that art of animation. I think there are places for that in products as well.
Eric, you mentioned a human, and you mentioned like a person, or there's like a personality, or that there's like you're speaking with the animation, you're using it as a language. Is that what you mean, or like what do you mean, like with a human behind that?
I think of sort of UI animations in two buckets, right? One is it's a language and it has a sort of semantics, but it's basically kind of symbolic. It's not character animation usually. It's just letting you know, for example, how two pieces relate, right? So if you think about a Mac desktop and you have a folder on that desktop and you double click it, it doesn't bring in a new window, right? It expands to show you the contents, which feels like that has a meaning. That expansion has a meaning, right? Yeah. So, but I guess what I'm talking about is more like those moments of like an animated icon or a warm welcome kind of sequence or something where it's really like there's some literal like character animation that comes into play that are these really nice moments. One of my favorites is, I think it's gone now that we've updated to the latest material design, but it was just like a little T-Rex that had dropped some ice cream, and I was like, oh, and it was basically just sort of saying, yeah, sorry, like something went wrong, right? And it takes that character animation and the finesse and the thought that went into it is palpable, right? Because I do think animation has a really unique kind of storytelling property that's kind of abstracted and lets you kind of fill in the gaps. And I think it's very appropriate to those moments.
Josh, how do you use animation in your work? Because you do product design, so animation is one part of what you do. But when do you bring it up? When do you say it's necessary, and when do you say it's not necessary? Just like Eric was mentioning. How do you decide that?
Yeah, so I think of animation more of like an assistant and not like a main component of product design. So animation only comes in when you like have to tell a story. I think it gives the products expressions, so it helps the products be more expressive. And as Eric said, it helps you tell a story as maybe when you press a button, the button expands to show a new category. So that part of storytelling and just assisting in making the UI more expressive and interesting to use.
Yeah. Pascal, so you started keyframes, and I don't know, it started more like focus on animation, and now it's a little bit more just like design, work in progress, whatever. How do you find the community, like the stuff that they're sharing? How live is it, and what do you think it's? I don't know. It's what is it bringing to the world?
Well, we created this new you call it a social network, just to give people some more context. Keyframes.net, and the initial idea was to build a social network specific, well, a community. Sorry, that's a better word. A community. The social network. We're creating Facebook 2.
Yes.
No, we wanted to create a community for people. Well, initially for animators to be able to share the stuff that they're working on, because it is such an iterative process. And I think the things that we tend to see on existing social networks are the finished results, which people are putting on the internet to rack up the likes and to rack up the retweets and, feel good about themselves, which is cool and all. But like a lot of the things that you work on never see the light of day. And I think there's a lot of really useful stuff that happens in the process of making something that deserves a little more attention for two reasons. One is that if you show your work early on, and this is a meme that we just have in the animation world, which is show early and show often, you can catch yourself before you go too far down the polish path and spend like 3 weeks or 3 months on something which could have been caught further up the tree. In an animation pipeline, for example, you in a 3D pipeline, you might start from storyboards to animatic to layout to then animation blocking to animation to lighting to rendering, and that takes months and months and months. And imagine like not catching that early, and the director at the end of like the 3 months sees your shot for the first time, is like, could we just like change the character altogether? That's like $2 million worth of time, which has just been like flushed down the toilet. It's a terrible way to make a film. It's a terrible way to work on something. Animation is a very iterative process. And so I wanted to, first of all, experiment with building a community that would encourage people to post their work, to share iterations of stuff, and then to kind of open up that meme, that idea, to the more general design and creative community, which I think at the moment in existing networks are very adverse to doing that practice of sharing what you were working on. People are still sharing their finished stuff without sharing process. They don't learn from things. Their work doesn't improve because they're not iterating. And I wanted to see what it would feel like to create a network where people can kind of help each other out in the early part of the process. So that's the current state of where Keyframes is. And right now it's really exciting. People are posting their stuff early on. They're dipping their toes in the water, and then, they get feedback. Someone comes in and gives them good constructive feedback because we've given them constraints to be able to give good feedback, and they're improving their work.
That's great. That's great. And I think
that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and I think it applies, and I'm happy that you open it up not just for animators but for other creatives, because that's part of the process and any other creative, right? And product design and UI design, anything. You really want to start sharing as soon as possible and finding out those things that are going in the wrong direction, So and I think you're right. Like, for example, you see. Behance or Dribble, where you see beautiful finished work. You don't see the process. It's really rare to see someone sharing like, this is the thing that I tried first. This is the thing that I didn't like, and why I didn't like it. It was going in the wrong direction. Like those kind of things that like it. I think there's not a lot of that because it can be a little bit vulnerable. It can be a little bit hard to just like open up and like look at that stuff that is not finished, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
a little bit fearful to get that negative feedback so early, right? Because it could be discouraging. And
yeah, and I mean, another thing that causes that to happen is people are posting that stuff on the same networks that finished work is on. So they feel like they have to compete with this thing that's on the front popular page, thousands of likes, and people are like, smooth, looks good, clean. And like they're posting something, it's a newborn baby. It's not even walking yet. You know, it's vulnerable, and you want to get, you know, raw feedback. And it is scary when you first wield an idea into the world and it's not fully formed and you haven't thought about every possible thing. But, you know, there's still a ton of value you can get from people if you change I think the language or the discourse and give them the context and be like, hey, you know what? This is like a work in progress. It's not quite ready. I'd love to know what you think here. Don't judge it as a finished product. Like, don't tear it a new asshole at the moment. Like, it is like still nebulous, and I would love to get some ideas. And you know, another great thing about getting feedback early on is people do free work for you. You don't have to also take their feedback and implement it. It's your job to just filter it and be like, all right, that's cool, that's a good point, that's great. And it's a great way to just generally soften your ego and consider other points of view.
Yeah.
But that's the general principle of what we're trying to do, and so far it's been really exciting to see people like helping each other out.
And I think, I mean, sharing your work early, it's something that probably when you work in a company that has a big team, it's something that you have a privilege to do. And you go on Slack and you share the early work. That's something that I get to do because I have a bigger team. But the reality is that a lot of companies have like really small teams. There's a team of one. You know, and it's that one person that is talking with the CEO probably directly, or talking with someone else that probably has a clear vision of the goals of what they want to do, but not really, they won't be able to share good feedback on the animation.
There's no specificity, which is a problem. You know, CEO is going to be like, oh, this feels good. Yeah, let's ship it. Or maybe it could be a little edgier or something. And then the designer goes and adds more edges to it.
Make it pop.
Make it pop, man. Anyway.
Yeah, I think I was wondering also, we were talking about cartoons. What are, I wonder if there are any things specific that you think that we could learn from like back in the day, from the animators like Disney, Hanna-Barbera, like Freeling, Max, like all those guys, or all those studios too. Like, what are those things that, because they invented a lot of this stuff, they figured it out, like where they were doing, this is not working, and then they started like even copying each other. Like, but now what can we copy from them? Like, in at least in product design and UI.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah, so I think one thing we can learn from them is their modular approach to how they attack projects. So first of all, they have like this base template and they keep building on that same template for a particular scene, or even throughout the whole series or something. So is that modular approach to how they animate that I think I really like about traditional design. Because I find it's kind of uncanny when an artist is able to draw different frames and the character still looks the same throughout the whole movie or something. So yeah, so that modular approach to what's tackling project is one thing I think can learn from traditional design.
I'd say abstraction. You know, I think about the some of the backgrounds and things in Disney animation or other of these classic animations. They get very, you know, sort of abstract and textural almost, and really keep that detail low. And so really focusing on, like, I guess it's sort of guiding focus through and being very like non-literal. As I think that can be helpful.
I think one place from where we can, again, in the mind of product design and UI animation, and like creating mobile products or websites, from people, modern people, that we can learn a lot. It's like from games. They've been doing this from day one. They've been creating their UIs animated and flashy with sound and everything. It's just like there, like in your face, doing something. So like, why were they so ahead? And is it more the technology? Is it the performance that was just like not there, and not until now?
I'm guessing it's the economics, right? Like, you just monetize a game way differently than you do, you know, other pieces of software. They're more like movies, right? They're more like these blockbuster, like, you know, and they have those teams that are absolutely necessary to, you know, produce these worlds, right? And they're going to make something really big, and they're going to sell a lot of copies of it. And, you know, it's just a completely different model for software.
Well, but you still have also indie game studios, and that is like probably a team of two, and that they have a limited budget. So it's I don't. Well, I want to think that it's not really that.
Yeah.
I would like to add that. I just want to say a symptom, I think, of our software scene is the lack of cross-pollination and the adverseness around it. And I think for that reason, there's been a lack of attention paid towards these artists and parallel industries that exist and have been doing this for a very long time. For example, like the video game industry is also a technological industry and use very much the same types of tools and workflows that we use, just a different kind of combination of them. And it's only kind of now that we're seeing people kind of pay attention to the type of work that they're doing. They're doing it in exactly the same hardware and environments that we're kind of using, and yet we're still kind of struggling to move a couple of rectangles around.
Yeah.
And then just like one other point I want to add to like what can we take, like learn from like the old masters. I think people often forget that Walt Disney wasn't just an artist, but he was an engineer and invented a lot of amazing technologies. And that old animation wasn't just art, it was a balance between science, like scientific method, I think, and feeling. And it wasn't just about like creating emotion. There was a lot of work that takes advantage of the glitch that we all have in our minds that animation, you know, hooks into, which is our defect of the persistence of vision. And then if you consider that, what is animation? It really is an illusion. It doesn't exist. You know, it's a construct. It's a glitch that like we perceive, and animation is really the illusion of life in a few ways. One, in that we, you know, our senses are overridden. We believe something is moving in front of us when it's not really. And then the other is that there is that emotional connection, which, you know, he did the ultimate crossover of like, he was able to move a shape across the screen. That's cool. That's technically animation, but was then able to get those forms to work together in a convincing way, character, and to put life into it, where you had an emotional connection to this like flower sack with ears that was Mickey Mouse, you know, using exactly the same technologies. Anyway, I just wanted to add that to the mix.
Pascal, you just dropped the mic right there. So after that mic drop, let's do some news, weekly news. Okay, so I'm gonna share that, and then after that, we're gonna go over some questions that some people on the audience are having. So let me go. It's gonna be quick. Okay, so it's a little bit awkward. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so in the news, let's start with something that I see. This is not really news. This is just something that I saw that it was pretty neat, and I wanted to share it. It's more like a little thing. It's an icon transition generator that it was done by Nucleo App, and you just like throw two SVG icons, and then it creates an animation for you. And it can be scale or rotate, and it feels pretty good. And it's just pretty simple, by the way, too. It's just a scaling down and then it scales up. And I suppose there's not even a transparency. It just disappears. It's the old switcheroo, but it makes it really well. So that's one. And by the way, that is just like from Font Awesome. I was just like drawing SVG files there. And then also a game that I just want to share with you too. Probably we should have played this while we were doing this, but CSS Snakes and Ladders. This, by the way, this in Mexico is called serpientes y escaleras, and this is how it looks. It's I don't understand how we were able to play this with all these colors.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yes, this is how it was. But anyway, this is made with just HTML and CSS, no JavaScript, and it even has like sound effects. You can play multiplayer. It has it goes up. You're just like rolling the dice. So check it out. It's just a code pen, but I think it deserves to check it out and even play. Another tool. These are all tools and little things. Peculiar. I think it's I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's supposed to be pick. And this is like Google for colors. So this is just whenever you're searching for colors inspiration, you just put a word, like for example, here I put happy or love, and then it gives you different colors. And all of these are coming, I suppose, like from images, as you can see.
That's what color I am.
Yes, yes. I put this color in Nigeria. I put Mexico too, and then you can just copy the CSS, and you can see.
That's interesting.
I suppose, like from an image, is like grabbing the like the most predominant color or something. But it sometimes when you're looking for inspiration, you're just looking for random stuff, and this is random but pretty cool too. And keyframes, we were talking about this, but I also wanted to share this. It's from Pascal. This is a community that is, well, apparently it's a social media too, with everyone can share their work in progress, and then other people can just like add comments, add their feedback. Here, they also even have a little tool called Snapper, where you can share instantly. There, I tested it out and then I deleted it. But yeah, other people are sharing their work in progress. You can say like, hey, I like this. I don't like this. It has different tags, and you can see here again, snapping, and then automatically share it, which is pretty cool. And now let's go to questions. So there's a chat here. I just wanted to remind you that this is live and other people are watching us. So just questions that are coming from the audience. And Edgar Chaparro is going to be here helping us with that. So let me